actually have the ideal guest with me to talk about the processes, what happens, the procedures from here on in. That's Senior Fellow at the Institute for Government, Dr. Catherine Haddon. Catherine, thank you very much for joining us. It was interesting to hear the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, characterise what's going to happen next, this one-week process to choose another Conservative leader and Prime Minister, as an experiment at the top of the Conservative Party. And he, along with other political parties, are calling for a general election. Members of the public have been getting in touch a lot recently to say, why isn't there a general election in these circumstances?
Yeah, the reason is because the Conservative Party don't want one, and they have, in theory, a working majority, so they're able to command confidence in the Commons, which is the key to being able to form a government. So in theory you don't need a general election because you ought to have a stable government. The problem is, if they can't actually form stable governments, we have another failed governments, they can't manage to control the political party and get legislation through, then the pressure increases, and constitutionally, whether there's a confidence vote or not, the correct sort of outcome is for a general election, because you have to be able to form stable governments. That's the entire purpose of general elections, is to form a majority so that we can have stable government.
So even though we've just had what's unfolded over the last few weeks during Liz Truss's premiership, because in theory, as you say, the party commands a majority, that's why we're not having a general election, but presumably there are only a certain number of times that scenario could be allowed to unfold. Do you think if this happened all over again, that would be it, would be into general election territory?
Absolutely, and this is really the big question mark that the Conservative Party have to solve in the next week, because it's all very well saying we want anyone but Liz Truss now, having got rid of Boris Johnson before that. But they not only have to find somebody that is acceptable to them, and it is most important that it's acceptable to the the parliamentary party, so they may want to bring the membership into it, but if they don't have the confidence of the parliamentary party, you can't command confidence, you can't form a stable government. You have to get out of the way and call a general election or pass it over to the opposition. That's how the Constitution works. Those are the principles behind it. But it is very tricky without a sort of formal vote. We saw it last night. If that was a confidence vote, if it had fallen, then the question would be asked about having a general election. But because it wasn't, or because they managed to get through it, we are now in this situation today.
Yeah, so how do you think the party is actually going to do this in the space of a week, compared to the election campaign that we saw run through the summer, all those hustings, the best part of a couple of months?
Yeah. I mean, the leadership rules that we've got in place now are entirely because back in the day, 1963 and before, it would be, what was called the men in grey suits, but it would usually be men getting around together to decide who should be the next leader. And probably similar will happen at the moment. I don't think we heard from Graham Brady earlier about the threshold of being able to get onto the ballot paper.
We didn't know.
So they could put that very high, so only if you've got the support of 50, maybe more MPs can you even get onto it. That would stop too many rounds going through, and it could be that actually enough MPs talk to each other, decide not to campaign, that actually it coalesces around one candidate, which is what happened in 2003 with Michael Howard. That is their best chance of avoiding the membership getting involved, and therefore rallying around a unity candidate. But there won't be a lot of people watching that have confidence they can do that.
Yeah, of course. Graham Brady can't predict that is going to be what happens, and therefore the membership might be involved. Just to repeat the point, it bears repetition, doesn't it? Clearly, we've seen with Liz Truss that the PM of the day has to command the respect, the support of a majority of the parliamentary party above all else in order to actually get on with the business of the day.
Yeah.
So do you think that this might be weighted in some way so that the parliamentary party's votes carry a greater weight than those of the wider party membership?
Yeah, I think that is one way of doing it. I think the question is, they talked about consulting them. I honestly don't know what they have in mind. I think perhaps Brady's hasn't worked out what the details will be.
Well, we haven't been in this sort of situation before, have we?
Exactly. So they're trying to both give it a semblance of some kind of democracy with a small d within their party, but at the same time they're trying to find a quick workaround that allows them to solve this in what, the grey suits, as I say, think is the most sensible fashion. But It's hard to do when you've got a party that is so split into different factions, and when there is so much blood in the water of people who are annoyed with other people and don't want them to be the leader of their party. So it's a real challenge for them as a political party, and a general election is something that needs to be sitting there as a threat if they cannot resolve this, because we do need stable government.
Dr. Catherine Haddon, Senior Fellow at the Institute for Government, thank you